Hey, welcome back to Divinely Uninspired. It has been a little bit since we've done a new episode, and as always, we are here with Jeremy.
Hello, everyone.
Jeremy, did you have a good Thanksgiving? I know it's been like 3 weeks since then, but
I did and I didn't. I stayed home by myself on Thanksgiving because I had the flu. So I laid in bed all day, and I mean, I don't know. I like being alone by myself sometimes. So it's a mixed feeling there.
I get that.
Yeah.
And Penny is with us once again.
Hey, everyone.
Penny, how was your Thanksgiving? Was it good?
I don't remember. Yeah.
Oh,
It
okay.
was good.
It was one of those Thanksgivings, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. And Kyle, welcome back
Hi.
from Colorado or Kansas City or where. I'm not really sure where you're from anymore.
I spent my Thanksgiving in Kansas City.
Okay.
I lived there for the first 13 years of my life.
Got
And
it.
I lived in Colorado for other 13 years.
Which is part of the South, Kansas City.
No, Kansas City's the Midwest.
No, it's part of the South
No,
because
it's
they
the
have
Midwest.
barbecue and sweet tea.
They don't have good sweet tea.
Southern things.
There's this whole entire conversation.
So we were having an office discourse about whether or not Louisville, Kentucky is considered part of the South, and there's a bit of a split decision there.
There's no split. It's everybody versus Kyle.
That's true.
Look, this is like going to Africa and telling people, I only make $100,000, so I'm not rich. It's the same thing. We're in the South. This is the South.
You make
is that
$100,000?
How is that even the same thing
Right.
at all?
It's a straw man argument. That's all I'm creating.
Oh,
That's
okay.
all it is.
It was
So
a very
confused right
bad
now.
straw man.
Yeah, it was. Well, let's set that straw man on fire and get to the show. We have a lot to talk about. Some fun story. I think everything's pretty fun today, especially that last story. I'm really excited to hear Jeremy's thoughts on this one. But first things first, here's the theme song. Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're listening to Divinely Uninspired, podcast by Journey Church Shepherdsville, hosted by Jeremy Willis and me, Rusty Wilson. You can find us online at journeyshepherdsville.com. For questions or comments, email podcast@journeyshepherdsville.com. Maybe we'll feature your question or comment on a future episode. Thanks for listening. Enjoy the show. So I didn't get to ask this question before the song, so I'm going to ask it now. Since we're in the full swing of Christmas season, what is everybody's favorite Christmas goodie? Like, you know, every family has their treats. Well, I'm curious what your favorite Christmas treat is. Anybody want to go first?
I don't really, sweets are really not my thing. I don't know. No bake cookies are great.
But you can eat those any time of the year. You only eat those
I
at
don't-
Christmas?
I mean, is there like what are we talking, like a
I don't
fruit
know,
cake or something?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if that's your thing.
I don't know.
So am I the only one that has a favorite Christmas
No,
treat?
I made a list.
Oh, okay,
I
good.
thought we were like going to get into this. So, so my tier 2 favorite Christmas
Tier two.
goodies are sausage balls. I love sausage balls. I can just eat those. The rest of the plate is whatever compared to sausage balls. I love puppy chow. I feel like people only make puppy chow
Oh, I
during
do
the
like
holidays.
that.
Yeah. And then my wife's grandmother makes homemade peanut brittle every year and gives it to us as a present, and it's delicious. I like eat it for like 3 or 4 months because it's so good. I eat like one piece at a time. But the king for me of Christmas goodies, I only get them at Christmas time. I know they sell them the rest of the year. Was something you guys got to eat today, and that's Hillshire Farm summer sausage and the cheeses and all that stuff.
That's your number one.
That's my number one.
Oh,
And
nice.
I think it's nostalgia. That's what my parents used to get me, like as a kid, and so it just kind of like everything else at Christmas food like is overrated to me.
Yeah. Well, you're coming off of Thanksgiving, which is all about food. Christmas is not all about food. What about you, Kyle?
We do these things called peanut butter balls where it's Rice Krispies, peanut butter, and then you douse it in chocolate. It's really good. There's
I've
also
had
like
those.
some-
It's a southern thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a southern thing.
They
It's a Midwest
they
thing.
make them in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Yeah, my family. So my family has a huge repertoire of different types of candies and goodies. So my favorite is we call it Goop, and it's essentially a homemade version of Chex Mix, but it's not the same. It's better than Chex Mix.
Is it sweet or
Tornadoes?
savory?
No, it's savory. It's
Okay.
very savory. And then we have my other favorite is called Tiger Butter, which is like chocolate and peanut butter mixed together in like a fudge type
Who's
situation.
making up these names?
My grandmother, may she rest in peace, she's the one who called it Goop,
Okay.
and it's her recipe. So
Is it gooey?
no, it's like, I mean, just like imagine sticking your hand in a bag of Chex Mix. It's Same consistency.
So why is it called goop then?
I don't know. I'm not
Is it
really
an
sure.
acronym?
Like I think goop, I think slimy.
Yeah, I guess it's just that, nobody else calls it that, just my family, because other people, they come and they eat it and like, oh, it's Chex Mix. And it's like, no, it's goop. And
I do love Chex Mix a lot. That's puppy chow, like the homemade Chex, not
Yeah.
the bag,
Yes.
but the homemade Chex Mix. I actually did something interesting this year. I made it, and then when I was mixing all the stuff you put on the wet ingredients on the dry, I put truffle oil in there.
Oh yeah.
It was pretty awesome.
Yeah. I'll have to bring some in so everybody can experience goop. And then the last one is a fairly new addition to our family's Christmas goodies, and we don't really have a name for it. I just call them reindeer turds because that's what they look like, and they're like peanuts and chocolate and some other stuff, and you just kind of mix them all together. And so they're no bake, and they harden, and they're really good.
Sounds like a good name for that would be Goop.
Yeah, that would be a good name. Goop would be
agree.
a good name for that.
And my family is all gonna send me nasty emails and text messages that how dare you allow anybody to challenge it.
Not
No, I
challenge,
think
just-
goop sounds amazing. I think it's not a good name.
Yeah,
I think the
probably not.
product sounds amazing.
Well, you can take that up with grandmother. May she rest in peace. Hey, so we are going to continue with the Christmas theme stuff. This is going to be our Christmas episode, and we apologize that we haven't been around for a while. It has been a crazy time of year. Right off of Thanksgiving, we came back and we prepared for Grinchmas, and then we had Grinchmas, and it was awesome. We had like 3,400, 3,500 people come through this place, but we were all wiped out. So we took just a little bit of a break, but now we're back with a vengeance. So the first thing I want to talk about is kind of in same vein as what we just talked about. What's the worst Christmas song ever written? So I want to hear your personal worst Christmas song, like the one that you when you hear it, you change the station or you skip on Spotify or whatever. Like, what's the song you hate the most?
Mary, did you know?
Why do you hate Mary Did You Know so
Because
much?
it's dumb. Like she did know. Like the whole like Christmas story is an angel telling her what's about to happen. It's based on Old Testament prophecies that explain what's going to happen potentially. And so yes, of course she knew. Like she knew.
Maybe you need to write a song called Yes, I Knew.
No, I do. That's when it comes on. My kids think it's funny because if it comes on, they'll start with like, Mary, did you know? And I'll be like, yep. Then I'll change the station.
That's
It's not about
hilarious.
the words. Have you ever heard a really large choir sing it? It's beautiful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
Still
no,
no. It's still
no.
not changing his mind.
It's still no.
I don't like that song either.
I don't really like the song either. Like even though it's theologically just dumb, I still don't like it.
You don't like any Christmas music.
No, I do like Christmas music.
Okay.
What about you,
I like
Penny?
Bing Crosby.
I do like the old school.
Yeah.
Like when the old school people sing. That's great. Probably I have a love-hate relationship with Silent Night.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your hot take on Silent Night?
It was not a silent night. Like Mary was giving birth. Like it was not silent.
Oh,
so
I
I don't
see.
understand the point of silent night when it was not a silent night.
I see.
But it's one of those songs like you get on the platform and like you're singing it and you hear people sing it back to you. It's really nice. But still, I'm not a fan of the words. It's not the song. It's the words.
Sure. Kyle, what about you?
I will take the claim of all of them. I don't like Christmas music.
You were such an old man.
All humbug.
We were talking as we were setting up Grinchmas, and we were in the Nightmare Before Christmas area, and he was like, "So what is this area like? Who are these characters?" Like, "Oh, it's Nightmare Before Christmas." Yeah, I've never seen it. Like, well, it's on Disney. You should go home and watch it tonight. No, I don't think I'm a Christmas movie. I just don't like Christmas movies.
Yeah. So
I was like, well, it's
Like-
kind of a Halloween movie. Yeah, I don't really like Halloween either. It's a stupid holiday. It's like
not a
you are
stupid holiday.
such an old man.
It's the most overrated of all the main holidays.
I disagree.
I disagree.
but my actual least favorite would have to be Christmas shoes.
Christmas.
That is. You said it's terrible.
Yeah, that's the worst one.
Oh, I thought you said it was the
no,
best.
No,
I was
no,
like,
that
no,
is
you're
by far
fired
the worst
immediately.
one. Christmas shoes.
I have a love-hate relationship with Santa Baby.
Mm.
Depending on the version, like I really like Michael Bublé's Santa Buddy. That one's funny to me. Have you heard that one?
No.
It's funny. But like the Eartha Kitt version and especially the Madonna version. Oh my gosh, the Madonna version just cuts right through me like a knife. But we're going to talk about the 20 worst Christmas songs of all time as decided by Rolling Stone magazine. So we're going to go through these kind of quick, and if you have something you'd like to say, some of these I don't even know. But if you want to stop me on any of these, you can do that. The first is coming in at number 20. Here, I'll do my Casey Kasem. Coming in at number 20, Stevie Wonder, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Me. I've never even heard of this song.
Yeah,
So-
it seems. Yeah.
That's number 20. Number 19, New Kids on the Block, Funky Funky Xmas.
I feel like I should know that.
You should. It's your generation.
I know.
My sisters probably know that because they love New Kids on the Block, or as they called them, NKOTB. That, they didn't really call them that. That's
no,
just
no one calls
that's just
them
how
that.
they abbreviate it now. Number 18, Pentatonics. That's Christmas to Me. That song is terrible.
I love them though.
I don't know any of their songs. I know people talk about them. I honestly have no idea who they
They're
are.
pretty great.
They are very talented.
Is it like a cappella? Is that
Mhm.
like their thing?
Yes, yeah. Imagine Pitch Perfect.
Never seen it.
Oh, you're missing out. It's
What
a
is
top 10
wrong with-
movie
Oh,
of all
it's
time.
so good.
It is a
funny.
very
It's a top 10
funny
movie.
It's Elizabeth Banks is who produces that along with Cocaine Bear. So
Okay.
you might have to check it out. And she's directing Cocaine.
Yeah,
Bear.
no.
I think the Cocaine Bear is going to do some a cappella singing, which would be amazing. Along with Anna Kendrick. She is a national treasure. Number 17, Justin Bieber's Mistletoe. I don't know that one.
I've never heard any of these
Great
songs
song.
so far.
Yeah,
Shouldn't be
so
on this
which
list.
tells me that they're terrible. Number 16, 21 Pilots, Christmas Saves the Year. Don't know it.
But
There's
it
a
has-
reason.
It does have Trans-Siberian Orchestra, which I do love them.
Oh,
They
I
are
like them
really
too.
good.
Yeah.
TSO for short.
Stop.
Got NKOTB with
All right, number
T-
15, I
TOP.
know, and I actually do like this song.
Jackson 5. I Saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus coming in at number 15.
I like that one.
I know Kyle hates this song,
Yeah, it's not good.
especially. I mean, everybody loves Lil Michael. After that, it gets dicey. Number 14. I don't know this song, but I really don't like the name. Number 14 by
Oh.
Bon Jovi, Backdoor Santa.
Wow.
It's
Let's just.
we're just
yeah.
gonna skip that. Number 13. Here we go. New song, The Christmas
This,
Shoes.
I don't know why this is only 13. There's no way there's 12 worse songs than this one.
They're pretty bad, but it's pretty
So
terrible.
a lot of these aren't the songs as much as it's the performer
Yeah.
that does the songs. Because some of the top 10 are good songs. It's just the performers that did it, like the next one.
Yeah. I like what it says on the very last line of Christmas Shoes. When the choir begins to sing along, it's a Christmas vomit miracle.
Mhm.
It is a terrible
It
song.
Yeah,
is.
it's really
People
bad.
love that song though. Like Mary, did you know? Like people, those are two songs that I cannot stand that people just love.
It's all Christians though.
Yeah.
I mean that, which is our audience. So, but anyway, number 12, Josh Groban featuring Faith Hill, The First Noel.
See, that's a good song, but apparently their cover of it must
Well,
be terrible.
They're two different genres. Like neither one of them would probably sound that great together. Just I don't know, mix of voices.
Yeah. Well, the editorial on it, they apparently don't like the lyrics. So that's sort of a critique of a really old song. So I guess they think they know better. Good job, Rolling Stone, whoever JD is. Number 11, which I like this song personally.
Yeah, I like
Weezer,
it.
Hark the Herald Angels Sing. Anything Weezer does.
I like
love.
everything Weezer does. They've
Yeah.
never done a song I didn't like.
I totally agree. So we're going to just tell them they're wrong on that one. Number 10, NSYNC. I never knew the meaning of Christmas.
What do they decide the meaning of Christmas is?
Um,
If it's anything other than
So it
Jesus,
looked in your
then-
eyes is what it says.
it
Oh.
looks like it has something to do with Britney Spears.
Wow.
So
So it's not like a Linus moment from Snoopy.
no, they
Oh.
they missed it there. Number 9, Leanne Rimes, Carol of the Bells.
No.
No.
I do like that song though, but I don't know about Leanne Rimes singing just that. Like that doesn't make any sense. Isn't that normally like a Carol of the Bells is normally a
It's a choir
yeah.
piece. Yeah, it's a single voice has a hard
and her
time
voice. Mm.
hitting that. Yeah.
Not a fan.
She's
Okay.
got a good voice though. Oh, whatever you think of her. Number 8, The Killers, Don't Shoot Me, Santa.
I like the Killers, but I've never heard this.
Now this song, this is a tragedy that this is on the list. Number 7, Lou Monte's Dominic the Donkey. Have you heard this song? Do you know this song?
No.
I've heard it.
Oh man, I almost feel like I need to play it for you right now. And he's long dead, so I don't think he'll sue us. But this song is objectively terrible, and I don't think it can be understated how bad it is. So here, just take a little bit of a listen to this.
Hey, jingity jing. It's Dominic the donkey. Jingity jing. The Italian Christmas donkey. La 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 la. La
there's that.
Yeah, it's bad. Yeah,
Great song.
It's really bad. And
It's not that
the
bad.
picture of him is actually sitting on a donkey performing the song.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, but people either love it or hate it. All right, number 6, the Pussycat Dolls, Santa Baby. I've not even heard their version of it.
I
but
can just imagine it's not good.
yeah, and it's what iteration of the Pussycat Dolls is it?
Oh, this next one is a tragedy. Number 5. Whoever wrote this article is dumb.
Yeah,
I immediately discredit everything that this guy said.
I totally agree. Elmo and Patsy's grandma got run over by a reindeer. He is a Kentuckian.
This is one of the greatest Christmas songs ever.
He was a veterinarian in Lexington, and he
Wow.
wrote this song, and it shot him to superstardom.
My kids every year want to listen to this song.
So do mine. They
Yeah.
love this song, which is kind of sad. Watch out,
It's
Grandma.
got to be a Southern thing.
No, well, maybe. Number 4, Seth MacFarlane and Sarah Bareilles, "Baby It's Cold Outside." Nobody has any thoughts on that one.
Never even heard it.
I mean, you've
What?
never heard "Baby It's Cold
No,
Outside"?
this version. I've never heard this
Oh,
version.
okay. Number
But I
3.
can't imagine Seth MacFarlane. I guess he's probably, does he do a voice from
he-
like one of his characters?
No,
or-
so he actually put out an album of like crooner music.
Yeah.
He's because he's and it's serious. It's not like, hey, watch what I do. This is a joke. He's very serious. Does his crooning. I don't know. He fancies himself a funny Frank Sinatra. Number 3, Band-Aid. Do They Know It's Christmas? Don't know that song. Number
Yeah, you do. It's like when they all got together, like Bono's in it and all kinds of people, like they got in.
Oh, it's the supergroup.
Yeah, it's a super group.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that now. Okay. Number 2, Maroon 5, Happy Christmas, War Is Over.
So they covered John Lennon in a
Mhm.
bad way. Because I like that song.
I
The
do
John
too.
Lennon one's good.
I mean, John Lennon was incredible. And coming in at number 1, Jessica Simpson featuring Ashley Simpson, "The Little Drummer Boy."
I can only imagine.
Yeah, it sounds
Put
awful
both
to
of them
me.
together. Oh, the worst.
I mean, they were only famous for a few years, and Jessica was only really famous because of the Simpsons TV show on
Well, and Nick
MTV,
Lachey.
right?
She married Nick
Yeah,
Lachey.
that's it.
Yeah.
So anyway, any that you think should be added to that list?
Mary, did you know?
That's true.
Any version of it
The
by any person.
what's that song? "I'll Be Home for Christmas, Only in My Dreams."
I
That one-
like
That's a
that
good
I like that song.
I worked retail for years, and they played that song 7 different times throughout the day, and it was the slowest thing ever. And I thought I was just going to
You're
fall asleep.
outnumbered on that
So
one.
I used to work at Chick-fil-A in Mall St. Matthews. For 7 years, I worked at Chick-fil-A at the Mall St. Matthews. And during Christmas time, I hated Christmas for a good portion of my life because of working there. And the mall would play the "Wonderful Christmas Time" by Paul McCartney on a loop in the mornings. I don't know if they were just trying to get the sound right, but it would, dun, 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 dun. The mood is right, give it up, but, and it simply it was awful. I mean, I like the song, but when you hear it on a loop for hours on end, it loses its luster.
We did when I worked at Best Buy. This isn't a Christmas story, but it's kind of like the same thing. So we used to have this I worked there when HD TVs first came out, so plasma TVs. And so to show like how awesome they are, they had because there was no HD content at the time, so they had to do like pre-recorded stuff. So they had recorded Ohio State Northwestern football game or something like that, and it was like the whole game. They just like played the game over and over again, so you could watch it and see how amazing it looks on the TV. And so if it was a Saturday and I was working and it was during football season, like I'd seen this game like literally 50 times at this point. I would like bet people like on what the next play was going to be because they thought it was live. Like if they didn't know what they were, and it was just like one of my favorite things to do is just like just on loop, like all day, every day. And for literally 2 months, I just watched that game over and over and over again.
That's an interesting game to record and play.
I don't
over
know
and
why
over
they
again.
chose that one. Yeah,
It's not like
kinda
it's a
weird.
rivalry game
No.
or anything.
I don't know if that was just like the easiest one to buy the rights to or something. Maybe. I don't know. But
Who knows? Hey, let's move along. Did you know that toilets are gross?
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is not, news, but it's apparently a little bit of news because recently a study was done about what happens when you flush the toilet. So like the contents, you think they go down clockwise, unless you're in Australia, then they go the other way. But apparently things don't just go down when you flush them; they also shoot up into the air.
Oh yeah.
So, I guess I just never thought about this being, a reality. But yeah, like we're all flushing the toilet and it's just ending up all over us.
There was a show, what was it with Mythbusters or whatever,
Yeah.
and they did a whole show about fecal matter, and that if your toothbrush is within I think it's
right.
10 feet of the toilet, you get fecal matter on your toothbrush, and it was like a shocking amount of fecal matter.
I have put my toothbrush up from that point on from
Yeah.
watching that show.
Yep.
Yeah, nobody likes feces in their mouth.
Yeah.
So they've got these videos of where they have turned green lighting onto the toilets like from within, and you can watch as they flush these. And these are not like any sort of like special toilets or anything. These are just average everyday toilets. That when you flush them, it is a mushroom cloud of poo that rises into the air. And I just think that I don't want to flush toilets anymore. I don't know.
I don't recommend that.
Put the lid down.
That's a good idea. Put
That
the
is a
lid
good
down.
good idea. But what about when you're out in public and you're at a public restroom and those
It's your own
things
choice for using a
they
public restroom.
they flush like they're angry at
Yeah.
you.
Or like on an airplane, that
Yes.
violent flush. Yeah.
Yeah. So people, as you're visiting family this year for the holidays and things like that, just put the seat down,
So
put the lid down.
Let's ask a follow-up question because I know the answer for me. Have you ever dropped something in a toilet and had to get it out?
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Second part of that question. Have you ever dropped something in a toilet that you hadn't used and had to get it out, but somebody else had used it?
Yes, because I have children.
Yeah.
I'd have to really no.
Yeah. I dropped a set of keys one time in
Oh.
a toilet at a gas station that had not been flushed.
Oh, that's even worse because it's not somebody. It's
Yeah.
one thing when it's your children because it's like,
No,
okay,
this was like a complete stranger, and I had no choice. I had to get the keys out, and so I had to reach in and grab it.
that is
That's
objectively awful.
Worst moment of my life, probably.
Yeah.
And Jeremy only has about 6 months left to live
Yeah.
because of that experience.
Well, I washed my hands afterwards. It wasn't like
Hopefully
I
you
was
washed.
Yeah.
You need to
six
just take a
different times.
shower.
Some Clorox.
Well, I did have the foresight to go to the person at the cash register and get a bag, like a plastic bag. So went
Oh, okay.
barehanded.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
still, it was
gross.
it was pretty terrible.
All right. Well, toilets are nasty. That's why I use Depends.
That's even grosser, probably.
Well, maybe. I don't know. Kind of keeps me warm sometimes. So let's talk about death for a minute because that's always fun. So you all know what chaplains do by and large, what chaplains' job is? Yeah. Well, apparently there is a new type of chaplain emerging in the United States and around the world, referred to as psychedelic chaplains, specifically chaplains who guide the dying through a psychedelic experience with psilocybins or some other psychedelic type of drug or pharmacology. I don't know. I don't know the words there, but I kind of think I would like to be a psychedelic chaplain. Like get to go with people on a trip as they get
agreeing
okay
with
with
you.
dying.
Yeah, it's cool.
I don't know. I've never done mushrooms, and I've heard experiences that are both good and bad. I can't lie and say that I'm not intrigued at what that experience is like. So, not that I'm going to run out and do mushrooms.
I can go ahead and tell you this: you can do too much mushrooms.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can get in real trouble real fast.
You sound like you're speaking from experience.
I mean, it could be.
Okay, so what is a good trip like?
So, I mean,
Our resident
all
drug
so we'll
expert
just
is
go ahead and say, I
Jeremy.
mean, most people, if you don't listen to the podcast, then you should know that I used to use drugs. And so I had only 2 experiences with them. Now, I have people that I'm friends with that talk about after reading this article, talk about these type of experiences, like almost like religious, like spiritual experiences. Mine were not like that at all. So when somebody asked me what a good trip was like, I'm like, I can't tell you because I did not have one. The first time I didn't take enough, I don't think, and the second time I took way too much, and it was one of the worst like periods of my life because it was. I mean, it messes with you pretty hard, and so. But I do have friends that have used this type of stuff before, and they will tell you that there's like a lot of crazy stuff that happens, but like in a good way, and so. So I don't know. I don't. I mean, I could bring some of them on, and we could talk to them about
That would
a
be
fun
awesome.
Yeah.
podcast. Yeah.
Or now, hear me out.
it.
What if we do a podcast while tripping?
Well, it's
Can-
illegal. Number one.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
Well, in some states it's not illegal, but most states it's still legal.
so what if I just go out to the woods and I'm like, hey, I found mushrooms and I cooked them into a pasta.
But like,
and-
I mean, I do think that like, because I know people were talking about drugs, so some people are going to lose their minds. But I do think like, I mean, this is not a new thing. Like, this is in other cultures been going on for years. They'll take you in tents, and they'll, even Native American culture with peyote. I mean, like, this is something that people have done before. It's just now getting kind of some mainstream kind of, I think, acceptance.
well,
So,
yeah, and I mean, people pay to go to Peru and take
Right.
ayahuasca.
Aaron
and-
Rodgers did, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, and just and he talks about the experience openly about how it was this unbelievable experience. So
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. So here's what the article says about the experience and why that they're making this push. Being with people in altered states of consciousness can be similar to pivotal moments like marriage, childbirth, or death. And psychedelic experiences, particularly at higher dosages, can feel like dying. Jeremy, you might want to be. Yeah. Jeremy looks like yeah, that's true.
no, I mean the time that I did too much, like I thought I was gonna die.
Yeah.
Like I mean, there's no. I mean, if I'd have probably thought I was dead, to be honest with you. But yeah, anyway, so go ahead.
So one can feel as if they're being born. One can feel a sense of existential rupture. And to have a chaplain there who maybe has a lot of experience with sitting with people who are facing death, there can be really applicable to accompanying people who are having these experiences with psychedelics. So I know that there has been a lot of breakthrough studies about how psychedelics can help people overcome anxiety and depression and addiction and things like that because of what the experience does to the brain. I guess I just don't want to be that guinea pig in that
Yeah.
way. I'd rather somebody else who is already comfortable with that.
And I think like that's the hard part of these conversations when it comes to drugs is when people, and there's a lot of fascinating documentaries about like the war on drugs and how in some ways they made it bigger than what it was. Now, obviously we all know that people can abuse drugs, and that's the only side we ever really hear from. And then now I think like with medical marijuana, which I think we're gonna talk about that in a minute, like people are starting to say like in certain contexts, these things can actually be good for people. And I think that's like the finally the narrative that people are having is like, when we think of drugs, we always think of irresponsible uses. But now they're saying like, no, there actually could be some good uses behind some of these things. And I thought that was a pretty fascinating article to read that about people, what they're doing.
Yeah, I think that if I'm dying, I might want to. I don't know. I would love to tell people like, oh, I'm not afraid of death or dying. I am afraid of dying, even though I believe that I have hope in Jesus and to be absent from the body is present from the Lord and all that. I still don't. I'd like. It's not the being dead part doesn't scare me. It's the dying part.
Well, I mean, I
that
think
don't
it's just the simple idea of humans. We're always scared of what we've never experienced.
That's true.
I mean, so it's just, and death is like the ultimate, like we've never experienced it. And so, the finality of it and all that stuff. But yeah.
and it's not like we can talk to somebody who has experienced it and be like, "Hey, how was it?"
Yeah.
I mean, people claim, but
Right.
I don't.
But morphine can create that euphoria as well, correct? No? I
Yeah.
mean, isn't that kind of like the end too? That's kind of the same concept.
Yeah, we'll bring Jamie on sometime and we'll tell you some stories about when we had Elliot. We had a lot of complications. She was on morphine for 14 straight days.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
And we actually were telling some friends that didn't know that part of our story the other night, and we were just telling them about some of the experiences. And I almost wish I had recorded some of the things she was saying and doing. And it was just because they were trying to keep her in this state. But yeah, I mean, it was very interesting. Some of the things that she was saying she experienced. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's crazy.
14 days on morphine. So yeah.
Sounds like a party. So I want to ask you guys, if Jeremy and our management team guys came to us, guys and gals came to us next week in staff meeting, they're like, "Hey, so here's the plan. We're gonna start growing weed on our church property as a way to provide jobs for people, and as a way to, make a difference in our community by taking that money and applying it to things and to help offset, costs and all that, what would your first thought be?
How much is my raise?
Oh, okay, that's a good
That's the
question.
first
Yeah,
question.
that is a good question. You'd have to farm it. What about you, Penny?
Oh, I have to work
This is
for
a
it.
bad idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, not a good one.
I don't know, Jeremy. Would you consider growing weed on the church property?
We don't have any property to grow it on.
I guess-
but
Good way to dodge the question.
yeah.
So there is a pastor in Atlanta, megachurch pastor Jamal Bryant wants to reach the masses, and he's got an unorthodox strategy to do it. The pastor of Atlanta's New Birth Missionary Baptist Church talked about his plans during a recent appearance on a podcast. New Birth is the largest landowning black church in America, Bryant said. My position to my deacons is, why aren't we raising cannabis? He added that he was looking for male congregants that, quote, smell like weed. I guess because
Well,
they know.
So this article, we'll just get to the problem this guy's gonna have is he's in Georgia where it's still illegal. So like there you like that's just you can't do that. It's illegal. You can't openly grow marijuana on your property. Like you just can't. Now if you want to do hemp, we do that in Kentucky all the time.
Huge cash crop.
Yeah, huge cash crop. Number one cash crop in Kentucky, I think, still. And so outside of soybeans may have taken it over. But yeah, I think that's just his problem is, now if this was in Colorado or Oregon or
the commercial license
California,
you have to have to be growing a certain amount is insane as well.
There's probably churches in Oregon and Colorado growing weed in their
Yeah,
sanctuary,
in Colorado, you could only have technically like 11 plants if you were in a household. Then beyond that, you had to go and get a commercial license, and the fee
Right.
for that, like you're basically doing a building project for that. And they're like, hey, we need to raise some money so we can start growing wheat. I don't know how well that's going to go over.
Yeah. There's a lot of problems with this, guys.
Yeah, I like the idea of, well, I can, bring people in and teach them how to farm and,
You do that with
helping them.
plenty of other things.
Yeah, that's true. You
It's
could have a
just very
community garden.
stereotyped, like he said.
He did. He stereotyped a whole
Yes.
segment of people. And then like
Absolutely.
I'm looking for guys that smell like weed.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's true too. And I guess the conversation around marijuana is going to continue to get more interesting amongst Christians in the church, because especially here in Kentucky, it was executive order that medical marijuana is now legal.
You just
in-
can't buy it here.
No, right.
Yeah.
So the question is, and I think that's just a matter of time.
Well, and I think
guess.
it's an interesting conversation. People don't want to have it, but and part of this is like the war on drugs and all that stuff that was, under the Reagan administration and all that stuff. But places, there is medical evidence of the benefits of people, that are and all that stuff. And so these places where it's gone medicinal, and for it to go medicinal in Kentucky, but not be able to grow it, you're killing our farmers. We already know. Hemp is, I think, number one and number two between it and soybeans, driving back and forth. But it is a cash crop here in Kentucky, and so there's so many. And when I was in Chicago, what's weird, and we talked about this, was to go to the states that it's legal now. It's just a non-issue for most people, and these dispensaries they have, it's like walking in to the Apple store. They're bright and they're in the middle of they're
Some of them
they're not in some weird part of town. When we were in where was that place we were at? Naperville. It's just it's literally I think a block down from the Apple store next to some running shoe store, and it's just this store there. But I think that is one of those things that the conversation is gonna, and they tax the crap out of it, and so it helps the school system, it helps the infrastructure. So I think it's definitely a conversation that Kentucky is having, and now that order for medicinal has been put in. But yeah, I don't know.
Colorado was the first state to legalize it, and one of the main pushes was this money will go to schools.
Yeah.
Every teacher still does not know where that money is, though.
Yeah, that's
it didn't
true.
go to classrooms,
Right.
Because it was, said it. Oh, it's going to go to classrooms, but every teacher will tell you they don't know where the money.
Most
it's
of the
not
overhead in
classrooms.
schools, though, is going to be buildings.
Yeah.
School buildings are incredibly expensive. They're incredibly expensive to run.
Mhm.
And I know that's not fair, but that's just
Yeah,
that's where a lot of the money goes.
I don't know.
And transportation.
Mhm.
I think that maybe this guy's on to something. That the church has got all this land. It's just sitting there.
I mean, I
Just
don't
build
know.
a disc golf course. These will find people that are smoking weed.
Yeah, I mean, but
Is
I
there a
do-
big correlation between disc golf and
yeah,
weed smokers? Oh, okay.
I
Well,
didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. Do you
Yeah.
play disc golf?
I do.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay, well there we go.
there it is. Your pink slip is on your desk.
Yeah.
So I it just feels like Kentucky is always way far behind on
We
things
are.
like this. Like every state
It's a
around
Southern
us
thing.
does the sports betting things, and I don't bet on anything. I'm too cheap to bet on anything. But like Indiana does it, Tennessee does it, Ohio does it, and everybody they all tax it, and it's just like Kentucky's like, nope, we're not going to.
Well, and
do
I
that.
think, and we can't get into this because it's going to get into politics, but like, I mean, I do think that there's going to have to be more conversations about this. And I mean, you can read and study this for yourself. I mean, there have been people that testified. I mean, gone back and written books about how they put marijuana in the same category back then as cocaine and LSD and all this stuff. And like those guys are coming back saying, we just lied. We just made it up because that was at the time because they had to have this war on drugs. They had to have a cause to rally behind. And so there's a lot of interesting information out there now. And then obviously like all these studies about people, especially cancer, I think. And there's even been people that have seizures and then stuff like that.
Glaucoma.
That this has been able to help them. And so, again, that goes back to that point I made earlier of that, we just categorize it all in the same thing because it's a drug. But then I'm like, man, how many drugs do your doctor prescribe to you that we're not talking about, that definitely don't come from a natural source or whatever. So interesting stuff. This guy, it's a bad plan though. Like it's illegal in your state. And so this guy is just screaming, please get rid of our tax.
Right. Let me smell out my workers.
Yeah. Let me get, his tax, whatever it's
tax exemption.
Tax
Bad
exemption.
idea.
Yeah. Just a bad idea all the way around.
Yeah. Well,
and even if it was legal, I mean, that still doesn't seem like a good idea for
medical marijuana shop.
Even if it does become legal, and even if your church is okay with it, I mean, not everybody's going to be okay with it, and so it's just like it just seems like a bad idea for this guy.
Yeah. Well, we'll keep an eye on this story because
now I'm curious.
I am curious to see what happens there, especially since it made national news. So that will be fun
That is
to keep an eye on. All right. So it is Christmas, and we are going to ask Jeremy what he thinks about a Christmas topic that Jeremy is going to ruin Christmas for everybody. So, Jeremy, people want to know because not every Christian believes in the virgin birth or in a virgin birth. So let's hear from Jeremy. What does the virgin birth matter? Why or why not? Here's
what does Jeremy think?
To set this up, because this can be such a volatile situation. And what's crazy is no matter what response I get, people are just going to assume certain things or say certain things or get mad without looking into it themselves. What I think amazes me about the Christmas story is how many things people think they know about it and they don't know about it at all. Like, I mean, if I did a survey of most people, like details of the Christmas story, for example, where was the star?
In the east.
Yeah. Was it anywhere even near the stable or the manger or wherever Jesus was born? The answer would be no. How did Mary get to the stable? Did she ride a donkey? I mean, most people say yes.
She rode Dominic the donkey.
Yeah, she rode Dominic. There's no mention of a donkey. What animals were at the stable? Anybody know?
Sheep.
A donkey.
Yeah, guess what? There's no mention of animals at all
I was about to
near
say,
the
you're
manger.
quiet.
And then obviously, like even this week, like I love to go back and listen to preachers like around the area and stuff. You would be amazed how many preachers this week talked about the wise men at the manger or wherever, the hotel or wherever Jesus was born. We don't even know where he was born. Like depending on who you read. So the point of all that is there's so many things about the story that are just not even right, taken out of context. It's amazing. And it like, I mean, I had somebody argue with me about that the reason that they brought frankincense and myrrh and all this was, well, because myrrh is an embalming agent. And so they knew that Jesus was going to die. And I'm like, hey, no, they didn't. Nobody knew that Jesus was going to die like that. I mean, and then second of all, like what a weird thing to bring a baby, like, but myrrh was just anyway. So there's all kinds of things, and they met him like 2 years later in Egypt. So
And there weren't three of them.
there weren't three of them. We don't know how many there were. They didn't even meet him in Bethlehem. They met him in Egypt more than likely. And anyway, so the point is there's so many things people don't know. So when it comes to this, but this one seems to stick out, the virgin birth. All right. So the first thing I want to say, and you guys can interject at any point in time, what I find most fascinating about the birth story of Jesus, and I love the birth story of Jesus, I love Christmas, it's so fascinating to me that John and Mark don't even mention it. Like, think about that. Like, if this is such a big deal, John and Mark is considered to be the oldest of the Gospels. In fact, most people think that it's the source that Matthew and Luke actually take from. If you don't know that, you can study that. But
And that Mark got his information from Peter.
Peter, yeah. And so there's a whole thing in college, if you've been through Bible college, that talks about that. So Mark doesn't even mention it, like doesn't even like bring it up. John, who spent the most time, this is the most fascinating thing to me, with Mary, because we know that at the end Jesus dies and he tells John to take care of Mary because they're the only two there at the scene. Like probably spent the most time with Mary, so probably knows the most about the birth story, doesn't even talk about it. Like to me, that's just fascinating. And I know some people, they're like, why does that matter? It's just interesting to me that this thing and this detail in this story that we made such a big deal about, two of the gospel writers, one that's considered to be the oldest and the original source of the gospel stories, and then with John, who spent the most time with Mary, doesn't even talk about the birth story. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean it's not important. Just an interesting thing to me. So the second thing that when it comes to this virgin birth is most people, the reason that they say it's so important is because it is about this prophecy about Jesus in the Old Testament. Okay. And so Jesus had to fulfill this prophecy, be born of a virgin. So the question is, and maybe you all know, and I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but does anybody even know where that prophecy came from? Just a guess.
Is it Ezekiel?
Not Ezekiel. Close though.
Isaiah.
All right. It's Isaiah 7:14.
Oh, I was about to guess.
All right. Now, couple of problems with this. Now, this is, and again, you have to hear the whole thing before you hear what I actually think. The Greek word for virgin in Matthew 1:23 does mean virgin. So when Matthew writes that she's a virgin, like he's not like using mislanguage. The problem is that he's quoting a Hebrew text. And the word for virgin in this Hebrew text in Isaiah, it's not the right word. It actually means young woman. Okay. And so it's actually the word itself, every time it's used outside of this, it's talking about a young woman, a young unmarried woman. Now, anybody that's studied the Old Testament, especially Jewish culture, if you're an young unmarried woman, what do they expect you to be?
Unblemished.
Unblemished. So they expect you to be a virgin. So the word is never used. It literally is just the same word you'd use for a young unmarried woman. And so, you're kind of jumping through some hoops to even make this word mean virgin. It's just assumed that this woman's probably a virgin. And so that's the other thing is this quote that Matthew gives is based on an Isaiah verse, Isaiah 7:14. You can look this up. And the word that he uses there, in fact, in the NIV, the NLT, the NCV, they all use the word virgin. If you go back to some of the other translations, they say young woman because they're trying to be more accurate to what it actually says. Now, a few of them, what I find fascinating is they still put virgin in there, even though they know the word isn't virgin, because they don't want to upset a bunch of people because we're basing this whole thing off that. So the second thing is, where does that Isaiah 7:14 verse even come from? Is it a prophecy about Jesus? And the answer would be no. All right, what's actually going on in that land is the Assyrians, that we talked about on Sunday, are about to invade the northern kingdom. And so, which is at that time, we talked about this on Sunday, the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom have been split. And so Israel is no longer one whole nation. And the Assyrians are attacking the north. The north goes down to Judah, to King Aziz, and says, hey, we should form an alliance to fight against the Assyrians, right? And he doesn't want to do that. And so he tells them no. So then the north starts attacking the south. So you got like a whole civil war thing going on right here. And so Isaiah comes along and he looks at Ahiz and he says, hey, just so you know that there's going to be this young woman that's going to have a baby and your enemies will not be able to, by the time this child is able to be weaned off of the mother, your enemies will be gone. All right. So if you read 7:14, that's the whole context of that. Like it's an actual historical event happening. And Isaiah just kind of in passing says, hey, this word from God is don't worry about it. Don't freak out. But because by the time this young woman has this baby, again, the word's not virgin there. It's this young woman who we assume to be a virgin in their culture, has this baby, your enemies will be gone. And so I say all that to say, like, just with some small hermeneutical studying, you can find that this Matthew thing is based on this Isaiah thing that doesn't even like have anything really to do with the virgin birth. Okay. So does it matter? I don't know. Second part is, do I believe that Virgin was a Mary, or that Virgin was a Mary? That Mary was a virgin? Yeah, I probably do. And the reason that I am okay with this, even though I was showing you these biblical reasons why some people wrestle with this and struggle with, there's actually a reason why they don't believe it, and it comes from the Bible. To me, the thing has been, if God created the earth, and I don't care how, whether it's 7 days or 7 billion years, however you believe that He created, sustains all life. If any of the miracles that we see in the Bible actually happen, I know there's some debate about those. Like, it almost to me seems like God impregnating a woman without like impregnating her, like in the the biblical sense. That doesn't seem like that big of an issue. Like, does that make sense? Like, to me, that's not a big deal. So I'm okay with the virgin birth story. The reason I gave you all that other information is to see this is the case that people have against it, and it's actually a pretty strong case based on some of those things, because we don't know of any other, I mean, in human history, virgin that's given birth, but for me, if God chose to impregnate Mary through some miraculous kind of way, like, to me, if you think about the rest of some of the miraculous things we've seen in the Bible, that doesn't even seem like that big of a deal to me personally. Does that make sense? So that's why I'm okay, and I'm good with the virgin birth. Um, but I'm also okay that if there's something else that was going on, and I think the end product of Jesus is more important than how he actually got here. Um, and so I think that's the big thing. And there's all kinds of stuff we could talk about that into that too, that it would just blow a lot of people's minds, that we don't have time to talk about. But to me, that's just kind of the thing, is I'm not sure how big of a deal that it is. I actually do believe that it was a virgin birth. But my belief in the virgin birth is less about the language of the Bible, and I understand people's arguments, and more about, to me, if God wanted to do that compared to some of the other stuff that God's done, it doesn't seem as big of a deal. So I'm okay with it. I'm good with it.
All right.
But I don't know how much it matters. I mean,
You guys have any thoughts?
That was a lot of information.
Yeah, I think kind of same thing as you is like, okay, this is the thing we're getting caught up on, not like the fact that God became man and lived for 33 years and then died and rose again 3 days later. Because even with a lot of students, they've been like, I don't know if I believe in all the miracles in the Bible, but they struggle with Jesus feeding 5,000 people with a couple fish and loaves. But then they don't wrestle with Jesus rising from the dead. I'm like, what? You're getting caught in something here.
Well, and
it's
that's
not that.
And to me, the virgin birth is the same as Genesis in some ways. I believe that God created. Okay. I don't know if it has to be a 6-day creation. I don't think that matters. It can be whatever, but it's just getting back to the idea that God created. With Jesus, I don't know if it was a virgin birth or if there's something else on. What matters is what Jesus became and what he ultimately did. And so we still get the same product. And I know a lot of people are like, well, no, the Bible says. Well, the Bible says this, but then it's based on this translation of this text that doesn't mean that. So now we've got a big conundrum if you're actually studying it rather than just quoting things that you don't actually know what it's talking about. So anyway.
Yeah.
Ruined. You ruined it.
I didn't ruin it. I still believe in the virgin birth. Like, I just don't, I'm good with it.
So do you remember the movie that came out, I guess, I don't know how long ago, maybe 10 years ago, where they did a story of Jesus as a child, and that he was the second born. He wasn't the firstborn. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't remember that?
I don't remember.
I do remember that. Jesus did have brothers and sisters, but he was not. The other weird thing that we don't even talk about that it was actually a bigger deal to some people is that Mary stayed a virgin, that she was always a virgin. And
perpetual
virginity. And that's actually a bigger deal in the religious world than actually was Jesus born of a virgin. And to me, that's like the most bizarre thing, because we know that Jesus had brothers and sisters. Like, he talks to them. Like, we see stories. I mean, James is one of the early leaders in the church who's, the brother of,
Joseph.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. Joseph is a whole entire thing.
My bigger question is, where was Joseph?
Like, what happened?
Yeah. What happened to this guy? Now, I mean, more than likely he died, but still, so I don't know. I'm not trying to ruin Christmas for anybody. I'm just not going to answer the question in a way just to get somebody to be like, it drives me crazy when I hear other people that do what I do, not only preachers, but just anybody that like it just starts quoting stuff. Like, I cringed when I heard somebody this week talk about that they brought frankincense and myrrh to the manger. And I was like, no, they didn't. Like, and just like, it's like that, you don't even have to like work hard to find out that that's not the case. Like, that's just actually reading the story. But anyway, so like that's why I said, I understand the people's case against the virgin birth if they're using the text. For me, it becomes even something else to me, like, knowing everything else that God is capable of, Like that doesn't seem like that big of a deal that Jesus could have been born or put, I don't know how that works. Put into Mary, impregnated Mary, whatever, without actual, but anyway.
All right. Well,
you asked the question.
I did. I wanted to know. I had my own thoughts on it, and
what are your thoughts?
My thoughts are honestly that for me personally, I've really found that I try not to put too many contingent beliefs onto who I think Jesus is. Like I think Jesus is the Son of God. Everything else is kind of like I don't know that I have the right answer. I mean, this is what the text says, and I do my best to interpret that based on history and what we have been able to discover since they were written. So, I mean, I consider myself still pretty daggone orthodox, but it's one of those where it's just like I'm not going to say somebody's not a Christian if they don't believe in a virgin birth.
Yeah, and I think that's where that's a good place to be, and I hope I answered it in a way that came across that way. I understand people's arguments against it. I'm still okay believing in it, but even if it wasn't a virgin birth, it doesn't change the end for me.
Yeah.
So
and I think that's what so many people have frustrations with Christians is we spend so much time dividing ourselves over non-essential things. And the problem is that, when you have, and it's a wonderful sentiment, in essentials unity and non-essentials liberty and all things love. But the question becomes then, well, what's essential?
Mm-hmm.
Because, depending on what church or denomination you're a part of, everything is essential. I mean, if you don't believe in a literal 6-day creation, well, then you're not a Christian because that's essential. Or, if you don't take communion every single week, you're not a Christian because that's essential. So
we got a woman on stage every week.
Yeah.
I mean, 50 years ago,
with her head uncovered.
The point is that it's got to be that progression. You know what I'm saying? I think that is where people have to be okay. Yes, there's new evidence, there's new things, and we have to be okay with like that. I guess for lack of a better term, evolution of some of those things. So.
I totally agree. And, it's one of those where the church should be the place where we are able to freely ask questions and be like, well, what about this? What about, which is honestly, this is why we do the What Does Jeremy Think segment.
So, yeah, I guess a better question, though, I think would help, and this would be, I know we have other things to talk about. Why is it, do you think, that so many people have to hold on to that, though? Like, so for me to say, I believe in the virgin birth, I actually do. And I'm not saying that just because people won't be mad at me. I do. But I'm okay if you don't. I'm okay with that. Why is it, do you think we've got to the place where somebody says, it has to be this? Does that make, like, that? I think that's maybe even the better question. It's not, does it matter? But why is it that we're in this place where somebody, it has to be that way, or you're not a Christian, or I'm going to condemn you because you don't believe this way?
My brother-in-law, my sister, did a little flirt to convert, and now she's married to an awesome guy. And a big part of his testimony is he always thought churches were like this one thing, and he had no idea there could be discourse about so many things in the Bible. There were so many different views, and it was actually really encouraging to him because he's very intellectually driven, very philosophically driven. So he started having those conversations, and it was open up to a whole entire new world of like possibilities. Not in the fact that like, oh, you can just believe whatever you want, but like there is things to talk about, and going back, what main thing is the main thing. And so it's much better to have a healthy conversation of here's what's going on and here's what we can learn from it as well. And here's what we can believe. And ultimately, Jesus is alive and he's good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with you. What about you, Penny? You have any thoughts?
I have a question. Where does the book of John start off with? What story? If it doesn't start off with
it starts off with the meeting was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So he is painting the picture that Jesus has always existed.
Right.
And I think I think in some ways, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rusty, because I know you say this too. Sometimes I feel like John's gospel is in response to the other gospels because he knows they're not accurate, for lack of a better term, and so he's trying to fill in some of the gaps. And I think that what happens is with the birth story of Jesus, what happens is some people think Jesus was created then. Like that's the beginning of Jesus.
Right.
And what John's trying to paint is a much broader picture of no, Jesus, this Trinitarian thing, he's always been. So he begins with, and he also, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and that thing. He is trying to not only talk about this incarnation of Jesus, but even talk about what Jesus was like before that. That he holds all things together. I mean, there's a lot of language that he uses that's bigger. He tends to focus, I feel like, especially on more the God part of Jesus versus the human beginnings. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
And so I think that's kind of where he goes.
Yeah. So John's gospel has a very, very high Christology. And what I mean by that is he really focuses in on the deity or the godhood of who Jesus is. Um, and part of that is probably because of the audience that John was writing to. Like Mark and Matthew are both clearly being written to Jews who understand all of the history and the backstory of where they came from and all that. And then Luke is writing to a Greek guy who commissioned the writing of Luke and Acts together, kind of a full history of where everything is. John's book is weird. I mean, there were people that didn't even want John in the Bible because they were like, well, this doesn't fit with everything else. So
I mean, it's still highly contested in the theological world because his telling of things. I mean, and he talks about stuff that none of the other gospel writers talk about. And I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that he says that is kind of like, and what's crazy is a lot of the most famous stories that you get of Jesus come out of John, and they're not mentioned in any of the other gospels. And so it is an interest. John is completely different. In fact, it's even like categorized differently when you study the gospels than the other three gospels.
Yeah, I mean, it was the last of the gospels written. I mean, the concept of the logos, which is the word, the word was with God and was God. That concept predates what John is writing, and predates it not just in time but in culture. There are other cultures understood this idea of the logos being an eternally existing thing, pretty abstract, and we're starting to get into the weeds a little bit.
But anyway, it is an interesting,
We
It's
can all
very
talk about our favorite
interesting.
gospels.
The more fascinating to me is Mark, though, because Mark
yeah,
is
Mark
often
is-
considered source material for the other ones, not John, but the other ones, and that he doesn't even mention the birth story, which
I
is
need to
interesting.
go back and
Yeah,
I don't know,
Mark
it'd be
is
really great
Mark
to
is
do a
my
study
favorite
of that.
gospel.
Yeah.
Marcus,
Yep.
I'm gonna have to I know them, and I guess if you grow up with the gospels and
Yeah.
everything, it's just would love to study them more in depth.
Yeah, Mark is great. The first 8 chapters are all, Jesus' ministry, and then the last 8 are all, or the 7 or the last, 7 days of Jesus' life. And so it's a super fast read. It's just getting all the information out there. Mark's main point is that Jesus is this suffering servant who came to die for us. That's kind of his main point, and that's kind of the theme throughout it.
Yeah, he's
as
pulling
well.
highly from Isaiah and also Ezekiel, and but then you get into the question. Okay, Mark, what do you do with chapter 16 of Mark? Because it doesn't show up for a long time
until like 600 years.
and
Yeah.
that's
Anyways.
it's some weird stuff about handling snakes
and I think in that What is the Bible class, and this is the kind of a cue people taking it. When you really start studying the Bible, and I'm not saying just like you listen to some guy saying up on Sunday morning, because can I just go ahead and say this and get in a lot of trouble? Most of those guys don't study the Bible either. They just take it at its face value, which is a bad way to handle the Bible. What's scary sometimes, and I talk about this a lot, is how human the book is. Like how much our fingerprints are all over it. And that doesn't mean that it's not inspired or anything like that, but that there's been a lot of liberties taken, and especially if you study how we got the Bible, it can be scary at first. Eventually, you get to the place where you're like, no, okay, like that makes sense. I understand that. Like, but at first, that can be very scary, And like the virgin birth is one of those things. I'm not saying that, but people argue was a later addition, that it may not have been a part of the original story, that it became something that was added later. Now, I wasn't there when that got written down, so I can't prove that, but that is one of the arguments that some people have.
Yeah. Well, we had some other things that we were going to talk about, but we have gone. This might be one of our longest episodes ever at just right at an hour. Do want to let you know about our Christmas Eve service times, because those are coming up. We have 3 of them. The first one is Friday the 23rd at 7
Christmas
p.m.
Adam, because Adam came before Eve, and the 24th is Eve.
Okay.
Oh my gosh,
That was the worst joke
I was like,
ever.
where's he going with this?
You're canceled.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay,
You've
I don't
never
even
heard
know.
that before?
No, that is the worst
Okay,
thing I've
but
ever
you guys
heard.
don't see how proud he was when he said it. I looked over at
It's
his
such a good
face,
one.
and we were all like,
It's
"What?"
same thing as I get to tell all the students, I'll see you next year this week.
Oh, that's awful. You're not even a father yet. You don't get to make those jokes. So 7 p.m. on Christmas, Adam,
See?
according to Kyle.
It catches on.
No, it won't.
It won't.
And then on Christmas Eve at 11 a.m. and then 9 p.m. that night, childcare is provided at each of those services. The 9 p.m. on Christmas Eve is going to look a little different than the other two services. And you can obviously find the services online as well. All right, real quick, because I want to hit this last thing since this is probably our last episode for 2022.
Forever after this episode.
That's right.
We won't do a podcast for another year.
Shut
Jeez.
up. Okay. What have you learned this year? I think I learned that Kyle has a terrible sense of humor. No. Everybody, what'd you learn? Take just in 2 sentences. What did you learn this year?
That people are amazing for good and bad reasons. I mean, I already knew that, but I think this year for me personally, but also just from a perspective of observing the world in a different way, people are amazing, and that can be good and bad.
It's been a full year since I've been at Journey working, and I think people assume people that work at church have a really, rock solid faith, and we really have to work on it. When you work in a business that is also a church, you have to work on your faith. So that's why I go and I listen to the sermons and I read a lot of books. So it's a process. You're always growing. So that's what I've learned. Keep working at it.
Kyle, what do you got?
Yeah, so this year has been pretty exciting for me. Since I was 17, I've wanted to work at a church and finally get the opportunity. And sounds like this is my last podcast for the year. No, but I'm still here. They're keeping me around, I guess. That's up to them. Actually, we'll have that conversation next week. No, I'm kidding. But no, I'm super thankful for it. But also at the same time, it hasn't fixed all the problems in my life, which is also really good to show that like your life isn't going to be solved by a job. It still creates other issues, and there's still a lot of things to be holding on to God for. So, identity and purpose isn't found in a job; it's ultimately found in God Himself.
Nice, very good.
That was not 2 sentences, though.
Sorry,
that's all right.
I was thinking about it.
That's all right. It's all good. I have learned this year that the things that I thought mattered don't always matter, and the things that I took for granted sometimes matter the most. So. Well,
and one last thing, we do need to mention this. We did learn that the Cocaine Bear is coming out
Yes.
next year.
It's going to be amazing.
A lot to look forward to.
We are going to do a review of the movie. We are all going to go and see it, and we would love to do a watch party when it finally hits video. It's not video.
We gotta go to the midnight showing of it.
You're a Blockbuster.
Yeah.
And the one in Oregon.
That's
the
right.
last one holding on.
That's right.
It's going to be great.
But anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We hope you have many more ahead of you, as well as memories of the ones behind you. And with that, we will talk
See you
to
next
you.
year.
Shut up, Kyle.
Hey, jingity jing. It's Dominic the donkey. Jingity jing. The Italian Christmas donkey. La la la.